Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why? Even after achieving everything you dreamed of, you still feel a strange emptiness in your chest. Why? Even when receiving praise, a voice inside your head whispers that you don't deserve it. Why? No matter how hard you try, it always seems like you're a few steps behind where you should be. If you've ever asked yourself these questions, you're not alone. In fact, you're about to discover a truth that most people prefer to hide, a truth that can explain why you never feel good enough, and more importantly, how to break this cycle that has been consuming your life without you even realizing it. Imagine for a moment that you are a small child, full of life, curiosity, and energy. You run around the house, show your drawings to your parents, sing your made-up songs, dance without caring about the steps. Actually, that moment, you don't know what insufficiency is. You don't compare yourself to anyone, you simply are. But then, something changes. Maybe it's a seemingly innocent comment. Why can't you be more like your brother? Maybe it's a disapproving look when you make a mistake. Maybe it's a silent expectation that hangs in the air, heavy like a storm cloud. And suddenly, without you realizing it, a seed is planted. A small seed, almost imperceptible, but one that will begin to grow and spread through the roots of your identity. This seed has a name: the belief that you need to be more than you are to be loved, accepted, valued, and here's the first truth no one tells you. This belief didn't originate from you. It was implanted. It was constructed by a society that profits from your dissatisfaction, by a system that needs you to always feel like something is missing, so you keep consuming, seeking, chasing after a completeness that always seems to be one step away. Because think about it, if you felt sufficient exactly as you are, would you still feel the compulsive need to buy, to impress, to constantly prove yourself? But let's go deeper, because the story gets more complex. As you grow up, this seed of insufficiency begins to germinate in subtle and devastating ways. At school, you realize you're not the smartest in the class. In sports, you're not the fastest. At home, you feel like you can never completely please your parents. And each of these experiences adds a layer to your emotional armor, a protection you develop to deal with the pain of not feeling good enough. You begin to create personas, masks that you wear in different situations. At work, you wear the mask of the tireless one, always willing to work overtime, take on more responsibilities, prove your worth through exhaustion. In relationships, you use the mask of the perfect one, avoiding conflicts, agreeing with everything, molding your personality according to what you believe the other person wants to see. And here we arrive at an even deeper truth, a truth that cuts like a blade. You have become an actor in your own life. You play so many characters that you've forgotten who you really are underneath all these layers. And the cruel irony is that the more you act, the less authentic you become. The less authentic you are, the less genuine connection you can establish with others. And the less connection you have, the lonelier you feel. And the lonelier you feel, the more you believe it's because you're not enough. It's a perfect and diabolic cycle that feeds on itself. But why is this feeling of insufficiency so addictive? Why is it so hard to get out of it? The answer will shock you. Because insufficiency, as painful as it may be, offers something your ego desperately wants: an explanation for all your problems. If you didn't get that promotion, it's because you're not enough. If that relationship didn't work out, it's because you're not enough. If you don't have the life of your dreams, it's because you're not enough. Insufficiency becomes an identity, a way of organizing the world that, although painful, is familiar and, in a way, comfortable, because admitting that you were always enough would mean taking full responsibility for your life, and that's terrifying. Let me tell you a story that might sound familiar. I knew a person who, from childhood, was the good girl of the family, always getting the best grades, always well behaved, always trying to please She grew up believing that her worth was directly related to her achievements. At 30, she had an enviable resume, graduated from a prestigious university, a well-paying job, a beautiful apartment, relationships that seemed perfect on social media. But every night, when the lights went out and she was alone with her thoughts, a question tormented her. Why do I feel so empty? The answer is simple and devastating, because she had spent her entire life building a version of herself that wasn't real. She had become so good at being what others expected that she had completely lost touch with who she really was. And that's the truth. No one wants to tell you the feeling of insufficiency has nothing to do with what you have or don't have, with what you've achieved or failed to achieve. It has to do with your relationship with yourself. It has to do with the fact that you're trying to fill a hole in your chest with things that come from the outside. When that hole can only be filled from the inside out, you're trying to prove your worth to a jury that will never be satisfied, because that jury is made up of voices from the past that don't even exist in your present reality anymore. But here's where things get really interesting. And this is where we begin to reach the climax of this conversation. Because there's a moment in the life of every person who carries this feeling of insufficiency when something breaks. It could be a crisis. It could be a loss. It could simply be the accumulated fatigue of decades pretending to be someone you're not. And in that moment of breaking, a possibility emerges. The possibility of finally seeing the truth. The truth that you were always enough. The truth that your desperate attempt to prove yourself has been based on a fundamental lie. Think with me, when you were a baby, did you need to do something to be loved? Did you need achievements on your resume, defined muscles, a full bank account? No. You are loved simply for existing. And here's the revelation that can change everything. That essence that existed in you as a baby still exists today. It hasn't disappeared. It has just been buried under layers and layers of conditioning, expectations, fears, masks, but it's there, intact, waiting for you to remember it. The great turning point happens when you understand that self-love is not something you earn through heroic deeds or constant perfection. Self-love is recognition. It's recognizing that you have inherent value, not because you did something extraordinary, but because you exist. It's understanding that your flaws don't diminish your value. They just prove that you're human. It's accepting that comparison is an endless trap, because there will always be someone with more, but there will never be someone exactly like you. And when this understanding really takes root, something magical happens. You stop seeking external validation, like an addict seeks the next fix. You stop measuring your worth by the praise you receive or fail to receive. You stop living as if you're constantly being judged by an invisible tribunal. And instead, you begin to live from a place of inner fullness. You begin to make choices not based on the fear of rejection, but based on what truly resonates with who you are. But pay attention, because here, I need to be brutally honest with you. This transformation is not a switch you flip and suddenly everything changes. It's a process. It's daily, it's a constant confrontation with the inner voices that still whisper that you're not enough. It's emotional archaeology work, where you excavate layer by layer until you reach your true self. And it's not easy. There will be days when you'll want to give up, return to the familiarity of insufficiency, because at least it's known. But I'll tell you a secret I discovered on this journey. When you stop trying to be perfect and start being authentic, the right people come closer to you. When you stop wearing masks and show your real face, you attract genuine connections. When you stop trying to impress and start being vulnerable, you discover that your vulnerability is actually your greatest strength. Because people don't connect with your achievements. They connect with your humanity. They don't fall in love with your successes. They fall in love with your honest imperfections, your real struggles, your courage to be who you really are. And perhaps the most liberating discovery of all is this: life is not asking for constant greatness from you. It's asking for true presence. The people who really matter in your life don't want an impeccable character who never makes mistakes, never stumbles, never doubts. They want you with your awkward laugh, with your insecurities, with your small victories and honest defeats. They want your unique stories, your peculiar perspectives, your singular way of seeing and being in the world. When you finally allow yourself to be who you are without trying to fit into molds that others created for you, something extraordinary happens. You discover that you're not only enough, but you were always more than enough. You'll discover that your uniqueness is not a defect to be corrected, but a gift to be celebrated. You discover that your journey, with all its ups and downs, with all its mistakes and successes, is exactly perfect as it is because it's yours. And here we reach the most crucial point of this entire conversation. The moment when you need to make a decision. You can continue living in the prison of insufficiency, always chasing approval that will never come, always trying to fill a void that only grows the more you try to fill it from the outside in. Or you can take the most courageous step of your life, the step back home to who you really are. The step of recognizing that what you've been seeking your entire life already exists within you, waiting only for you to stop looking in other places. Because the deepest truth I can share with you today is this: you don't need to be more than you already are to deserve love, respect, dignity, happiness. You don't need to achieve more, have more, be more. You just need to remember who you always were underneath all the layers of conditioning and fear. You just need to reconnect with that essence that never stopped existing within you, that never stopped being enough, that never needed external validation to have value. The world needs your authenticity. It needs your honest vulnerability. It needs your courage to be imperfect. It needs your willingness to show that it's possible to live without masks, without characters, without the constant performance of perfection. Because when you live authentically, you give permission for others to live authentically too. When you accept yourself as you are, you create a safe space for others to accept themselves too. When you break the cycle of insufficiency in your life, you open a path for others to break this cycle in their lives too. If you've made it this far, to this moment of our conversation, it's because something inside you recognized the truth in what I shared. Maybe it's because you've also been carrying this weight, this persistent feeling that no matter what you do, it's never enough. Maybe it's because you're also tired of living like an actor in your own life, interpreting characters that don't correspond to who you really are. If that's the case, I want you to know that you're not alone on this journey, and that there is a way out of this prison. And that's exactly why I want to make you an invitation. In the comments below, tell me, have you ever felt this way? Have you ever carried this weight of never feeling good enough? What was the moment when you realized you were living a life that wasn't truly yours? Share your story, because your experience might be the light that someone going through the same situation needs to find their way. There's no shame in admitting you've struggled with this. In fact, admitting it is the first step toward freedom. And if this conversation touched something deep within you, if it made you see your life from a different perspective, leave a like on this video. This isn't just an empty request for engagement. It's a way of saying that this content matters, that these reflections have value, and that together we can spread this message of self-acceptance and authenticity to more people who need to hear it. Each is a vote of confidence that conversations like this can make a difference in the real lives of real people. And if you want to continue this journey of self-knowledge and healing, subscribe to this channel. Here, we won't just talk about problems, we'll explore paths to transformation. Together, we'll build a space of honesty, vulnerability, and genuine growth. A space where you can be who you really are, without masks, without characters, without the constant pressure of having to prove yourself. A space where your imperfection is not only accepted, but celebrated as part of your unique humanity. Because at the end of the day, the greatest truth you can take from our conversation is this: you're already enough. Not when you achieve more, not when you become better, not when you finally manage to impress whoever you think you need to impress. You are enough now, exactly as you are, with your doubts, your fears, your imperfections, and your unique beauty. And the world is waiting for you to remember this and live from this truth.